Okay, so there we go. So welcome to the January 2026 meeting of the PRC. Happy New Year to everybody. Hopefully everybody had a great holiday season. So off we go. We're back to work. So first things first, dealing with the agenda or the roll call. We only have one regret, and that's from Howard. I don't have anybody else. We haven't seen Matthew for a while. Is he teaching, do you think? I don't know. I haven't heard. I'll drop him a note because he's pretty faithful. So I'll get back to him. We haven't seen him in a couple of months. Okay, apart from that, can I have someone to move to approve the agenda as circulated? Brendan, seconder is Peter. Thank you. All in favor? Wonderful. Thanks very much. Okay, moving through the agenda. So the next is the news and announcements and updates. This is actually an article that was sent to me by Howard from the Globe and Mail dealing with crime victim legislation, and it was an article written by Kent Roach, who probably most of you know is a very uh, respected scholar in all kinds of fields, but the Constitution is certainly one of them. And what the article basically says, let me just see now, I made notes of it. So the article, it's an opinion article. It argues that the Carney government's proposed crime victim legislation, Bill C-16, and we'll talk about that later today, is constitutionally flawed because it attempts to legislatively constrain how courts remedy charter breaches, particularly unreasonable trial delay under Section 11B, without invoking the notwithstanding clause. So Kent contends that Parliament cannot, through ordinary legislation, override or recast Supreme Court established constitutional remedies, such as stays of proceedings, which is the remedy you'll find in 11B of the Charter, and that doing so intrudes on judicial independence and separation of powers. All right, so that's a bit of news, and we'll talk about Bill C-16 when we get to it. Any questions or comments about that? No? Okay. All right, business arising. So let's move to the justice-related committee work. The first one is the Commons, Justice, and Human Rights, and that would be Sarah.
So the House of Commons Justice Committee hasn't met since the last time we met as a group. So they did meet on December 19th, or sorry, December 9th, which is the date of our last meeting. So on that day, they did their first reading, I think, of Bill C-9, which is the act to commit the act to amend the criminal code, hate propaganda. Wait, sorry. No, sorry, they did Bill C-16. So the first reading of Bill C-16 was on December 9th. So that's the act to amend certain acts in relation to criminal and correctional matters, child protection, gender-based violence, delays and other measures. So this is the Protecting Victims Act. So this was read first on December 9th, and then there's been nothing since. So just the current standing is that that's had its first reading. Bill C-14 has had its second reading still. And then Bill C-9, last update was four meetings since October 8th, so October 9th. So they've had four meetings in discussion where they've heard witness testimony. I think originally when they started talking about this bill, they allotted either 6 or 8 meetings to discussion. So they have two to 4 more discussion about this bill, and then they're gonna move to a third reading, I believe, I would guess within the next couple months here. And that's it. There's nothing
That's
else
great,
to
and
report.
we're going to touch on those bills when we get to them as well. Any questions or comments for Sarah? Okay, thank you. Public safety and security, national security, that's Rob. Before Rob starts, I should bring everybody's attention that Rob did send me his notes that we didn't have for the last meeting, but he sent them to me, I think it was yesterday. So if anybody wants the notes from the last SECU meeting, let me know and I will send them to you, courtesy of Rob. So, okay, Rob, you're up.
Okay, thanks, Miles. I guess I can quickly bring you back to November, like before the notes that would have been for the previous meeting, and just cover it all quickly. There were 3 meetings regarding C-12, one meeting on Canada-U.S. border management, and 2 on Canada's ability to remove foreign nationals with a criminal record, and another one on C-8. So the 3 meetings on C12, Canada's borders and in the Canadian immigration system. They had 3 meetings there covering a lot of different topics, all in that world. Better sharing of information among the parties who were charged with investigating organized crime, money laundering, improving inspections at the ports, improving the ability to investigate financial crimes, warrants for detention of inadmissible persons, changes to government reporting on removal orders. So those are, some of the topics covered. They did a clause, or rather, following a clause by clause review. Bill C12 was presented to the House on November 28th. On November 27th, they were working on the Canada-U.S. border management. I didn't see anything of relevance to us. On the 2nd of December, the topic of discussion was Canada's ability to remove foreign nationals with a criminal record. Mainly representatives from the CBSA were present, testifying. So CBS, just some interesting facts, I guess, I picked out from that day. CBSA reported that there are currently 33,000 people wanted for removal in Canada, with approximately 2.2% of them associated with criminality. I didn't see much else really directly relevant other than, stuff related to that. The committee did agree to undertake a study on systemic discrimination within the CBSA. They agreed to undertake a study to examine the requirements for the clearance of containers at Canadian ports. And this would be possibly of interest to some folks, especially out west. The committee agreed to call on the government to rescind the land divestment plan that would lead to the closure of the Penticton Shooting Sports Association's shooting range. So land divestment plan leading to the possible closure of a shooting range that's used by recreational shooters, the RCMP, the BC sheriffs, and cadets. On the 4th of December, subject was Bill C8. That's an act respecting cybersecurity. I didn't find anything of relevance to us. And on the 9th, they were back talking about Canada's ability to remove foreign nationals with a criminal record. Hearing from the president of the National Police Federation, and the written record was not available on the CQ website as of the 10th, which is when I was on there working on this. So that's all, and that brings us up to date, actually, except if the written record is, when that's available, I can take a look at it. That's for the meeting on December 9th.
Thanks, Rob. That's very comprehensive. Any questions for Rob? Excellent. Thanks, Rob.
Did they happen to give a reason why they wanted to shut down the shooting range?
I'd have to go back, Peter, and check that. They may have. It was a lot of talk about being unhappy with that.
No, I was just wondering. Thanks. No worries.
Okay. Thanks.
Did I hear right, Rob, that 33,000 people are to be deported, or
33,000 that are just being careful on the people wanted for removal from Canada. So you'd have some sort of warrant out or some sort of documentation which requires their removal. They're not supposed to be here, basically.
And I don't imagine we're talking about all people with criminal records. We're talking about
small percentage of them would have criminal records. There was some. Let's see. My recollection was there are a few numbers tossed around, but I landed on the best one being 2.2% of them were associated with criminality. Doesn't mean they had a criminal record. I read carefully, but it meant there's some association with criminality. It probably meant that included criminal records, possibly charged with something, outstanding warrants of arrest. It's things like that. So it was the different numbers. It wasn't very high. Maybe that was one of them. Someone else said something like 3 or 4%. So that would be of the 33,000.
And I imagine, I'm sorry, I don't want to take too much time on that, but I hopefully we're not trying to develop a rhetoric that all these 33,000 people are, kind of crime associated and stuff like that, like Trump is doing south of the border, just putting everybody in the same bag kind of thing.
I didn't sense that that was getting that part of the conversation was
Okay,
kind
great.
of getting out of control. There were a few numbers when criminality was raised. It seemed to be clarified that it was somewhere in the less than 5% of those folks, and pointed out several times, just slightly different numbers depending on who was speaking.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rob, Peter, Michelle. Very good. Any other questions? All right, guys, thank you. And next we have the Senate Legal and Constitutional Affairs, and that would be Brendan.
Yeah, thanks, Miles. I think I missed our last meeting, so I wasn't able to give the my update at the time. In all honesty, the committee has more or less been stuck with like one issue. I'll give maybe just a quick rundown of what's been going on. At least since the December meeting, I think Legal and Constitutional Affairs has met 6 times. Um, there hasn't the only thing that is really of interest to us is Bill S-205, which is Senator Pate's bill, an act to amend the Correction and Conditional Release Act, which is of course sort of the new version of previous bills that Senator Pate has introduced. Essentially, the gist of the bill is transferring inmates with mental health issues to mental health hospitals and whatnot. They've actually since the last report I provided you, I believe there's been one, two. Uh, 5 meetings on S205. A great number of witnesses have appeared from academics, members of the Correctional Officers Union, indigenous groups, so like the Assembly of First Nations, CAMH, CMAH, I think, CMHA, sorry, the Advocate Society, EFRI, Canadian Bar Association, basically everyone you would think would be in support of the bill. The correctional investigator also testified. Um, the conversations that are happening on this bill are substantially the same that happened in the last parliament. Generally, people are on board with the idea of people with mental health issues not being in correctional facilities. However, there's the concern that it's not feasible to have somebody's detention reviewed so frequently by a justice of the peace or a judge, and that there's simply not enough correctional officers to escort people to uh, oversee these individuals through transfer and whatnot. And there's just simply not enough beds in the community to accommodate all these people. So, again, nothing really surprising for this bill. Same conversations we've seen in the past. And unless anyone has any specific questions, I think I'll leave it there. And again, other than S205, the committee is met to discuss certain aspects of the budget implementation bill and the statutes repeal act that they do I think it's every year or every parliament, but anyway, that's what they've been working on. Oh,
Thanks,
my
Brendan.
apologies. There's one more thing I should mention. I don't know if I mentioned this in my last report or not, but there was consideration of future items for the committee. This was before the introduction of some of the new criminal justice bills. They were thinking of what could they study moving forward. Several ideas were put forward. They all more or less coalesce around the idea of reforming the criminal code, and certain senators presented them as separate ideas, but in the end, they sort of all return to the idea of reform the criminal code. So, for example, I maybe having a greater focus on certain provisions or certain rights for victims and things like that. So anyway, it looks like the committee be looking into maybe looking into that issue, but with the new crime bills coming, the criminal justice bills coming through, I think that might be put on hold for a little bit. And the committee had acknowledged that they would likely get pushed aside once C14 and 16 come through.
Thanks, Brendan. I'm curious. No mention of a reintroduction of what was last C 212, which is Kim Pate's bill regarding spent conviction regimes. There's been no talk of that.
I haven't heard that come up. I know I was looking for that because I recall Senator Pate had two bills, and I haven't seen the other one arise yet, and I haven't necessarily heard anything about it yet.
Yeah, I'm curious. And we've done this the last 4 years at the PRC. I mean, she's reintroduced that bill at least 4 or 5 times
Yeah.
as Parliament's changed, and the fact that it hasn't come forward at this point is I think it's unusual. I don't know why.
Yeah, I'll take another look, Miles, just to be sure, but I can't recall having heard about it, but I do remember being a little curious about that as well. I wonder, I mean, I'm just opining a little bit here. I recall when in the last parliament when the minister was talking about it, essentially they were sort of saying, "Hey, we're working on something ourselves." So I wonder if maybe they've roped Senator Pate into that and say, "Hey, we will introduce this bill, um, so you don't have to introduce your own." But perhaps it maybe that's overly optimistic.
I'll send her a letter. I know.
Okay.
I'll send her a note and ask what's happening with that. But thank you very much.
Brendan,
Appreciate it.
can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Uh, are they making any distinction or any kind of talk about when we're talking about mental health issues and inmates being transferred to the community? Are there any discussion about older people in conflict with the law, people who might suffer from Alzheimer, all sorts of cognitive problems? Are we putting, raving sociopaths along with older people who have cognitive difficulties? Are we making that kind of distinctions?
Yeah, so I would say like from my recollection and again I could look into this just to be a little more sure, but my understanding is this is I think they're really talking about people in acute mental health crises and they're not necessarily they're not focusing on the aging population in prison and dealing with let's say Alzheimer's and things like that. I suspect perhaps if it somebody, a detainee, was suffering from Alzheimer's and became violent sort of as a result, that might fit the bill. But I think the focus is typically on those perhaps on the more violent end of the spectrum. But I haven't heard too much of a mention or much distinction or much attention towards the aging population in prisons.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for Brendan? Oh, Andrea.
Or probably less for Brendan, more for kind of yourself, Miles and Irving. A lot of of our colleague groups has sound like they've stood before and presented like committee on S205. Is CCJ taking a position on this? And if not, how come we are not speaking up on this since a lot of our work does focus on corrections, federal corrections?
Let me just see. I mean, we've had it in the agenda since it was introduced, which was back in May. Um, but you're right, we haven't discussed a delegation or any kind of representation or a brief. Do you want to do that now, Andrea, or do you want to wait till we get to it in the bill as part of the meeting?
But either or works for me. I mean,
Let's do it now because it's topical. Sure, go ahead.
yeah. So, I mean, for me, as kind of folks have been hearing over the last few months, right? Like to see us more active in this space. And I know, Miles, you've been pushing this forward on a number of different issues. And so, I mean, especially given that the OCI's written a report we put together. I know it's on our agenda, commentary on the OCI's report, and just curious. And Irving, I think it's probably a question more for you on whether or not CCJA should be writing a brief on this and taking a position
I suppose we
in support of the bill.
Yeah. I'm not sure why we haven't focused on it as of yet in the PRC, but we can certainly have a fresh look at it.
Okay, so I guess is that something we can leave with you, Irving, then to take a look at where it is, where the bill is, and whether or not what avenues we have to put a position forward for CCJA?
Sure.
Unless any, I mean, I guess I should ask, unless anyone's opposed to us coming out in favor of the bill.
No, I'm sure that's not going to happen. So you're thinking along the lines of a brief and a delegation?
Potentially, I guess it depends on. I'm not sure what they're still in first reading, but I'm not sure, or second reading, sorry. So I'm not sure what the process is, but wherever we can get in there. Like if it's too late for us to have a delegation to present, then that's one thing, and then we just focus on a brief. But I think we should come out with a position.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Their second reading was October 21st, which means that it's still likely based on the time of year. It's still in committee. So,
Mm,
if there's going to be a delegation, it would be now or
Mhm.
very soon.
yep. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, I think we should be. Part for visibility of the CCJ, part to assert that we stand and vocalize our position.
Yeah, and the delegation can be by Zoom, so it's pretty easy to set it up and present. So if that's something we want to do, then we should start clicking away pretty quickly.
Well, we
Okay.
have to prepare a brief first,
Yep.
obviously. Then we send in the brief and then we offer to provide testimony. Whether they accept our offer, that's up to the committee chairs, so
Okay.
on.
Mhm.
I might just add for legal and constitutional affairs, I mean, I'm getting the impression they're getting towards the end of their meetings. They began meetings on this bill at the beginning of November. So I wonder if it's exiting this committee shortly, so we might have better luck in the Commons than the Senate. Just
Yeah.
yeah, that would
Yeah,
be my question.
and maybe we can't go that route. Maybe it's just a matter of actually sending Senator Pate, like sending him a letter to let her know that CCJ supports the bill. Since we haven't said anything, we've just not taken a position.
Have we in the past, again, I just feel like this bill has popped up so many times. Have we never, I can't recall if we ever actually said something about the bill or participated in any meetings on this bill.
Not
No,
that we know of.
no. Well, I mean, the next thing is either a letter to Senator Pate or a brief to be presented to the board. So, yeah, Andrea, do you want to take on those tasks?
I would love to take on those tasks, but I don't have the bandwidth to take on the tasks, which is why, like, I mean, I wrote the correspondence or our potential position statement for the OCI report, which is why I'm kind of punting this one over to Irving. I don't have the capacity to write a brief or a letter, but we certainly we shouldn't be and can't be silent on these sorts of important federal legislative bills that are coming through.
Martin Sparlauer, I think I have that right, is volunteered his time and attention to working on a brief for us. He sent me an email in the past week offering his assistance, and I said we would see what topics would generate that. So, I have no problem in going back to Martin and giving him a reference to the bill and telling him that we'd be interested in him preparing a brief and have him take it on. So leave that with me then. All right, so I'll do that, and so there's nothing for you to do again, Irving, until I guess I get that done.
And Miles, I'm happy to kind of help review and look at things and that I just can't be the primary pen holder.
Not a problem. I'll tie him into you, and have him whatever he produces, have him run it by you.
Okay, great.
Super. All right, that's good. I was going to use him for another delegation, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. Okay, so that's it for Brendan's presentation. So we're moving on then to the Senate Human Rights, and that would be Dick.
Well, there have been no meetings since our last meeting, so there's nothing really to report.
Okay, thanks, Dick. No problem at all. All right, moving along, business arising. So going through the items that are waiting briefs for the most part. I don't think there's anything until we get to the Law Commission of Ontario and its AI criminal justice issues. That's Sarah and Michelle. Anything happening there?
I just sent out an email to you a couple minutes before this meeting with the finished paper. So it's their first draft, but it's fully edited and up for viewing. Very excited about it. Basically, what we started out with was a brief, and then Bill C-27 still hasn't come back into the House of Commons yet, which is what it was initially created to kind of talk about and to address. But since that bill's not active anymore, it's turned into a position paper. And so now our position is kind of that we're taking a cautionary stance about AI and kind of bringing to light some big questions around AI and its effect in the criminal justice system, and then its just overarching effect into all other sectors as well. So it's an interesting read. Definitely would love feedback for the next meeting. You can send that out now. You can send it out later, but it's ready for first round.
Super.
Do you want to add anything, Michelle?
No, I would maybe just add if it doesn't look like a position paper to you guys, or if it doesn't look like it's something that the committee could use, I think Sarah and I would certainly love to have the permission to do something else with the paper. So keep in mind, it doesn't have to fit absolutely in what the PRC committee is doing, but we want to do something with that paper after editing and all the work that still needs to be done there.
No, that's great. Thanks, guys. I haven't seen it yet, but I will obviously after the meeting, and I'll circulate it and look for some comments, and we'll come back to it next meeting. Super. Thank you.
Miles, sorry to interrupt, and I don't mean to hijack your meeting, but just while we're talking about AI, might now be a good time to introduce our newest member, Jessica, to, and I'm thinking specifically for Sarah and Michelle.
Yeah, please do.
Jessica, you want to introduce yourself? Just by quick background, Sarah and Michelle, Jessica and I have met because we work on some different projects together, but one of the areas that she's super interested in is in AI. So I convinced her to join the PRC so that she can help us with this topic. And so Jessica joins us for the first time today. And Jessica, I will, with Miles' approval, just let you introduce yourself.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, hello, everybody. It's welcome. I'm very excited to be here. As noted, my name is Jessica DeVries, and I'm actually an analytics and insights professional. So I've been providing research and evaluation services to the public sector primarily for the last 10 plus years. But what brings me more here is my volunteer experience through a community-based organization here in Edmonton, Alberta, where I'm based, providing reintegration support to folks, primarily women. So I escort them on temporary absences, all of that for the last 10 years. And that led me to go back and do research really I did my master's in community engagement. So this idea of not doing research on communities, but really leveraging lived experiences and recognizing the knowledge local to communities to kind of do really grounded research. And that's where my thesis work came from, which was exploring success from the perspectives of women after, post-release. And so that's really where my interest kind of came into when it comes to the justice sector. And so I also work, as Andrew mentioned, when how we got connected is through building AI systems that are ethically formulated. And so I have been doing a jurisdictional scan of, what's currently going on in different jurisdictions with the applications of AI, the potential, but also the risks and stuff as well. So excited to be here today and looking forward to seeing that paper that Sarah and Michelle produced to just kind of take a look and see where I can support and, of course, to learn as well.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jessica. Pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much. Nice to see you. Okay, next would be the item of the Miscarriage of Justice Review Commission. There was an article at the end of December basically bemoaning the fact that everything is in limbo because the Minister of Justice has not moved forward with the appointment of commissioners in order to create or operationalize the commission. And in fact, although the legislation requires a head office in Winnipeg, no office space has been secured by the ministries. And the big issue is that, of course, current applications that are with the DOJ and the Criminal Conviction Review Group, which is 5 or 6 lawyers that work at DOJ on this, have pretty much walked away from the responsibilities under 696(1) of the code. So everything is in limbo until the minister moves forward. I think at the last meeting, I probably reiterated the fact that my contact in the Justice Committee indicated that his discussion with Sean Fraser was that they were going to put out the call for commission applications before Christmas. That didn't happen. I haven't followed up with that, but I will. I'll get back to my guy, my MP, and talk to him about that to see whether he can talk to Fraser again to see what's going on. It's disconcerting because Peter and Michelle and I are on a separate organization called Miscarriage Justice Canada, and we have a number of applicants that actually have applications with the Department of Justice who were counting on some kind of response from the CCRG, and apparently now it's not going to happen. So I've told them that that's not going to happen. So we're dealing with that. So there we go. So there's no reason in the world to think it's not going forward. Obviously, legislation is in place, and it should. It's just a function of priorities for the government, and it's not a priority, obviously. But it certainly is something that they're obliged to carry forward. So again, I'll check with my guy in Ottawa, and then bring everybody up to date on our next meeting as to what he has to tell me, what happens with his discussion with the Minister of Justice. Any questions about that?
Well, I'm just wondering, Miles, should the CCGA make a somewhat formal ask what the hell's happening and try to put some pressure or on behalf of the CCGA?
Well, we can ask the board to do that. I mean, if that's coming from the board, coming on behalf of the CCGA to come from the board,
Okay,
I certainly endorse that kind of thing.
okay.
So then we pass that over to Irving.
Miles, quick
Yes, Brendan.
question.
Yep, sure.
The appointments for for this commission, do you know if they're GIC appointments?
Yes.
Okay. Not well, so one thing I've noticed, and none of this is like protected information or anything like that. I don't know what's going on with GIC appointments, but the budget seemed to suggest that they're trying to overhaul the GIC appointment process. There's a whole host of appointments that are waiting to be made. If you go on the GIC appointment site for the government, they've all been scrubbed for something. Like everything is gone from there. When like I think in December or something, or maybe a little bit before, there was many still up there. Many of them were like pending and whatnot. And different Minnesota, like in my case, it was public safety, and I know there's a few that need to be made on the public safety side. Clearly, there's some on the justice front. I wonder if this is just a larger problem. Like, I don't know if this may be part of cuts, like with Carney trying to do cuts in the government, if they're hesitating to make GIC appointments. But the more I hear from different people, the more I hear that there's a lot of different organizations that are awaiting GIC appointments that just aren't being made, despite the havoc it's creating.
Okay, I didn't know that, but that's great. I'll mention that when I talk to my guy
Hmm.
and see.
Brendan, I think that's a good guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't speak from any specific knowledge, but if they're looking at thinning out the public service, particularly at the highest level,
yeah.
GIC appointments are a possibility for some.
Exactly. And again, I'm not saying anything that's like privileged knowledge or anything. It's just like this is all publicly available. So I just sort of
Right,
pieced it
right.
together.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the site lately, so I did notice that. But thank you for that. I didn't know that, so that's great.
Mhm.
Appreciate it. I'll include that in my inquiry. Okay. Let's see. The next item would be Andrea and the her report for the OCI, or the report on the OCI's report. So Andrea, when you prepared this, did you prepare this? Has the CCGA already adopted this? So
Sorry, no, it was just kind of like, it was more of an observation that other organizations have put out a position statement when the OCI's annual report was released. And I noticed that CCJ hadn't either joined in on the joint letters of support or documentation, and that we hadn't taken a position. So at our last meeting, I talked about us putting something out with respect to the release of the OCI's report. And so what format this takes and I think is up for debate, whether it's a social media post, whether it's, I don't know. I leave that kind of for discussion, but I just put together some language that we could potentially use that has not been adopted by the board. The board has not seen it.
Okay, yeah. So it's written as if the CGA already supports it, so I understand that. So again, Irving, this would be something that you would, and the CCJ now has a social media presence
Yes.
that it's activating. I mean, that maybe is a good place for it, but it's what Andrea has drafted here would be something that the board would need to support. So you would need to take it to the board. And if they agree, then yeah, post it somehow, somewhere.
Yeah, whether it's, I mean, I think and Irving, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the NAACJ and other organizations collaboratively sent out a letter to media following the release of the OCS report. I can't remember how many. There were
I
a
don't,
handful of folks who were signatories on that letter, but CCJ wasn't one of them. And so
right.
I'm not sure what the best avenue to take is, but to again make a public statement around CCGA's stance on some of these, national reports that we haven't been publicly taking a stance on.
Okay.
Good. Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Irving. One item I just skipped over, which is on the agenda, is the response we received from the Uniform Law Commission of Canada with respect to our proposal that's been active for the last couple of years, and I thought was positively being received by the ULCC. And it was the proposal that all the human rights codes across the country, including the federal government, would be harmonized so that a criminal conviction would be a prohibited ground of discrimination with respect to employment, across the country, and with respect to housing. And we got a letter back in on December the 9th, and I've included it in the materials for you guys to see. It's basically a response saying that the board of the ULCC is basically saying no. They don't think it's not going to go forward with them. Their impression is that, the individual provinces and territories wouldn't be on board with making a criminal conviction a prohibited ground of discrimination. So that's their first response. And their second response is they think it's better handled through exactly what we talked about earlier, which would be legislation along the lines of what was formerly S212, Kim Pate's spent conviction regime. And which we understand that, but the beauty of the proposal was that it would basically obviate the necessity of legislation. It would basically take care of the damage that a criminal conviction does to somebody's prospect for employment and housing, without it going through a private member's bill in the Senate, which will likely never see the light of day in the Commons. Anyway, there we go. That project has now come to a close. I was disappointed, but it is what it is. Any questions or comments on that? Okay. Thank you. Anyway, it was worthwhile, and we worked hard on it, but it is what it is. Okay. The next item is Ontario's plans to require cash bail as a function of its recent legislation. The legislation has not reached committee stage, but we talked about preparing a brief on it. And what we talked about last month was, and nobody knew what the process was in order to get before the Ontario Legislature committee, and it's the Committee on Justice Policy. That's what they call it, and it's the same as the Commons. It gets the second reading, and then it gets to committee where they have delegations. And so basically, this is the item I was going to have Martin step into and prepare a brief for us. But we think it's certainly a worthwhile thing for the CCGA and the PRC certainly to take a position on, right? That requiring cash in the surety bail process, makes custody a much more prevalent proposition for any number of people in the bail process because they just don't have the cash. That's all there is to it. And it's a draconian measure. It really is. But we need a brief prepared on it, and then something that we can actually present it by way of a delegation. I'm open for suggestions.
Miles, I do have a quick thought on that. You're saying that you had somebody in mind to maybe write a bill on that, and knowing that everyone's quite busy at this time, it appears what is happening is we might need to prioritize certain bills over another. Um, and this is just my point of view, and certainly everyone can disagree with me or anyone can disagree with me, but I almost feel like it may be more worthwhile or more have a larger impact to appear for that bill for the Ontario change. Partly because the sheer volume of individuals already in support of Kim Pate's S205, it's staggering. While I think it's important for the CCJ to maybe put his 2 cents in on there, um, we'd be one of a number of voices, one of a number of strong voices already in favor of Kim Pate's bill versus the bill in Ontario where it requires cash. cash for bail seems like, as you said, draconian. So I wonder if we're in the stage of prioritizing who does what and how much time we have. I would say perhaps that's one that we prioritize. But again, happy to hear disagreement on that.
Andrea, what do you think?
I think they are both important bills, but I agree with Brendan. Like maybe the compromise is simply, we pool our limited resources on writing a brief for the cash bail, but that we pen a letter to Senator Pate about our support, right? So not as resource intensive, but at least acknowledges our stance on Tona's law, while we focus concentrated efforts on the cash bail situation. And Irving, I don't know. I know they're independent, but is there some opportunity here to have a conversation with our Ontario affiliate, since this is not Ontario legislation? And so, we have provincial affiliates across the country. Like, is this something that they might, I know they're also a small volunteer board, but is this something that someone there may be interested in supporting the CCJ nationally, given that this is an Ontario bill? Something to consider.
Yeah, it's an idea. I can share that thought anyway to see if there's any takers.
Yeah, so do that, Irving, and then let me know what happens. And then if we don't have any takers, I'll work up a letter in support for submission to the Senate, I guess. And I'll talk to Martin about a brief for the cash for bail. So that's good triaging there, Brendan. Appreciate that. That works out well, I think. So that's great. Thanks, guys. Everybody okay with that?
Think so.
Super. All right. Okay, so that's it for business horizon, and so that takes us to the bills under consideration. So the first one we have is C12, which basically we already have gone through. Since our last meeting, it had third reading on December the 11th, and it's had its first reading in the Commons, all right? And we know bill, that's the public safety security bill that seeks to strengthen border security, and Dick's mentioned that earlier, or Rob, I'm not sure, but in any event, yeah, Rob did. In any event, so it's moved to the Commons, so we'll keep track of it as it goes through there. Bill C14, which is the bill dealing with, as we already know, bail, sentencing, repeat offender accountability, and a lot of reverse onus provisions, what have you. We've discussed this. I'm going to, for future agendas, the first time a bill appears, I will include all of this material in it, which is from the text of the bill dealing with what it intends to do. And then for future agendas, I'll prepare a summary and put it in the agenda just for ease of reference for future references by the committee. So Bill C14 is a bill that we intend to make an appearance before, and I think we've talked about this. I think it was I do it. Andrea and Brendan, I think, were the ones that's who we talked about appearing as a delegation on this bill. I don't see Andrea nodding her head or shaking her head. No. Did you want to appear in this one?
I think was what I can't remember if it was this one, and because I thought whatever it was, I thought Dick was part of it, whichever one that I remember putting my hand up for.
I'm sorry, it is Dick. You can nod your head now. Yeah, and relying upon Dick's paper to begin with. Obviously, that it's the mainstay of our delegation is what Dick's already and which already been circulated amongst the PRC and the CCGA. So I apologize. It's Dick and Brendan and myself, and I'll just be the setup guy. But having said that, it's not in committee. It's still second reading, but not in committee. So I talk to the clerk on a pretty regular basis. So I'll check in with the clerk, next week or later this week to see how what's the timing is going to be for committee, if he can tell me, and then I'll let you guys know, and we'll take it from there. But that's a delegation for sure. All right. Anything else about Bill C14? All right. Bill C16, which I've given you a lot of material about what it's about. It had its first reading on December the 9th. And it's a criminal justice reform bill. It talks about child protection, addressing gender-based and intimate partner violence, enhances victims' rights and reshapes how courts deal with delay and remedies. And again, it deals with, and this is what Kent Roach was talking about in the article in the Globe, about how it thinks that it can somehow basically short circuit the Supreme Court of Canada's approach to delay in sentencing, which is basically Section 11B and the cases, the Jordan cases and what have you, that deal with how long it takes a case to get to trial before, and if it doesn't meet 18 months in the Ontario Court of Justice or 30 months in a Superior Court, it's presumptively going to be tossed or be issued with the stay of proceedings for a delay under the charter. So that's what it's talking about. And we talked about that earlier as well. Any comments about C16? Other than what we've already covered? Okay. No request for a delegation on that one, which is a good thing at this point. All right. And okay, so that's it. There are no other private member bills of distinction that we need to refer to. So, that's a fairly robust conversation regarding outstanding bills and what we're going to do with them. And if any questions or comments regarding the agenda at this point, because that brings us to the end to a great degree.
I just wanted to quickly raise a point that I said I'd talk about. I think I did. Just on ties in with the artificial intelligence and just the Edmonton experiment with the cameras, police officers' cameras. That just as a quick update on that, that's still ongoing as far as I know. There's been nothing at all in the news that I can find, with the exception of an article from December the 18th by Akron Legal company. It's out of the States, but it's actually an excellent article giving the whole history behind what is going on and the development of it. Also ties into the experiment that's going on in the United Kingdom right now with respect, because they're no longer part of the EU, which bans facial recognition for the police. Actually, in England, it's going great guns, and if you listen to some people, they would say it's wonderful. The privacy commissioner for Alberta has not, that I know of, because I can't find it, made any pronouncement on the privacy impact assessment that needed to be done before Edmonton started their experiment, but they started their experiment before the cart came before the horse, let's put it that way, which is nothing new. And by the way, Jessica, welcome. Between yourself, me, and Sarah, finally the West is no longer a voice crying in the wilderness.
Awesome.
But anyway, and so if you wouldn't mind keeping an eye out from your end in case I missed something, that'd be excellent, and Sarah too. But I just wanted to bring everyone up to date on that. I think it's a very important issue to look at. And then the only other thing which I know is got moved over, but just the ongoing saga of the Alberta Provincial Police, or if that's what it's going to be called, we still don't know exactly. That is a moving ball right now. It's still churning out, and I don't think anyone, including inside, knows what's going on with it, other than just trying to get things going. The one positive thing that did come out of that whole process was the Alberta Police Review Commission, which is now in force and operational as of December the 1st, and it covers all police entities in the province, including the three independent Indigenous police forces that we have, and so and that in itself is a very interesting piece that was brought forward, and that just actually might be a much more positive way of doing things, because it is somewhat removed, although it's very political still, but it is removed from the actual police services and investigating themselves. So that's just that update on that stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. My apologies. We talked about this last month. I didn't add it to the agenda. I should have. So I'll put it on the agenda as a recurring item, talking about the AI and the surveillance. So we'll come back to it as we go through the monthly agendas. Any response for Peter?
Maybe not a response, but for those interested in who is our position paper, Sarah, will be sent to the rest of the people right now at the meeting, or because I know there's a lot of people on the PRC committee that never show up, I think, eh? Do we want to send that paper to absolutely everybody, or do we want
Yeah.
to send that paper to people who have a chance of replying? And if so, I guess what I want to say is that please send Sarah and I your feedback as soon as possible, so that the next meeting we can bring, updated, or maybe so we can move forward faster, particularly for you, Jessica, if you have already some expertise. And maybe just to point out that we're not trying in that paper to solve all the problem of AI. We're mostly talking about, informing people that they should take a stand about issues that concern them, that in positive or negative. We're not trying to explain the entire thing, which would be impossible. So,
Well, Miles, could you not reattach it to the minutes?
Or
go out to
the report. Well, I can certainly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to circulate, I haven't seen it yet, but Sarah sent it to me. I'm going to circulate that to my email list, ask for
Right.
feedback as soon as possible so we can discuss it further. Yeah, absolutely. And then I presume Sarah and Michelle will have some response to that feedback before our next meeting. And whatever that response is, I'll attach to the minutes.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks, Michelle. And Brendan, you had a point?
Yeah, I just had one quick little I guess addition to make to what Peter was saying about the Alberta the Police Complaints Commission. The only, the only police force that it doesn't have necessarily full jurisdiction over is the RCMP, except in cases of serious incidents. So the CRCC remains like the complaint body for the RCMP unless essentially it's going to be investigated by ACER. So that's the only sort of separation, and I'm curious how that's going to play out, if that's going to make any issues. But otherwise, outside the RCMP, that's it. It's under the jurisdiction of the Alberta Police Complaints Commission.
Okay. Anything else, guys, for the good of the meeting?
I was just going to say to Brendan that ACER is now rolled into the Alberta Police Review Commission.
Exactly. I think that's a great
Where it
idea.
comes under that,
Yeah.
and its function hasn't changed. It still
Yeah.
does, as you say, if there's a fatality from a police operation involving the RCMP, it still has jurisdiction.
Exactly.
But otherwise, no.
Yeah.
Miles, I was going to just suggest a small edit. I think it's item 4E on the agenda, the follow-up to position papers.
Right.
We've updated them, and you've done a lot on that. It's on our website. But just based on the conversation we had 2 minutes ago, if we come up with an agreement on what our position should be on AI, it might be a good paper to add to that as a position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's something really going forward. It's going to have a lot of impact in every manner of life, I think. Certainly criminal justice.
Excellent. Yeah, well, we can certainly do that when we formalize a position on it based on Michelle and Sarah's work. So that's a good idea. Thank you.
Welcome.
Anything else, guys? All right. Thank you very much. Pleasure seeing everybody. Happy New Year again. And a lot of work, and we'll see each other in a month or so. All right,
Take care.
everybody.
Thank you, Miles.
Ready?
Bye now.
everybody.
Sounds good. See you.